Next chapter is on pollination. Now, pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the same or another flower. It is a method where pollen grains they are carried from an anther, that is the male part of a flower, and transferred to the female part of the flower, that is the stigma. To ensure that the pollination works successfully, the pollen grain must be transferred from the flower of the same species to the another flower of the same species. Pollination, there are two types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination is the primary type, includes a single flower. In self-pollination, pollen grain falls directly from the anther into the stigma of the flower. Although this process is quite simple and fast, it leads to the reduction in the genetic diversity, as the sperm and the egg cells of the flower share the same genetic information. When the pollen is transferred from the anther of flower to the stigma of the same flower, it is called a self-pollination. This form is quite common in the hermaphrodite or dioecious plants, which contain both the sex organs, that is, male and female, in the same flower. In self pollination plants, there is less dependency on the external factors or agencies for the pollinations. These plants depend on wind or smaller insects that visit the flower regularly. If in self-pollinating flowers, the anther and the stigma are of similar heights, to facilitate the transfer of pollen, the self-pollination can be divided into two types: autogamy and getonogamy. In autogamy, the pollen is transferred from the anthers of one flower to the stigma of the same flower, whereas in getonogamy, the pollen is transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the another flower, but on the same plant. And we have the cross pollination. The cross pollination, when pollen grains are transferred from anthers of one flower to the stigma of the another flower. In this case, two flowers are genetically different from each other, and cross pollination always depends on the external agency for pollination or the transfer of pollen grains. We have different agents of pollination like birds, animals, water, wind, insect, etc. Depending on the agents of pollination, different types of flowers are there or different types of pollinations are there. First, you have the hydrophilous flower, which are pollinated by the help of the water. The flowers are very small, inconspicuous for the other agents to pollinate or transfer. These flowers, they do not have any fragrance or they are not colored, and the pollen is adapted to be able to float on the surface of the water, as in case of Vallisneria. So here you have the staminate flowers which will shed the pollen grains. They are going upwards, floating on the surface of the water, and upon coming in contact with the pistillate flower or the female flower, they bring about the pollination. Zoophilous flowers. Now in zoophilous flowers, we have different agents like human beings, bats, birds, etc. Then anemophilous flowers, where flowers are very small, inconspicuous, light in weight, and they can easily carried by the wind. The pollen grains, they are non-sticky and they are winged so that they are adapted to float on the wind currents. Entomophilic flowers, in this flower they are pollinated by insects The flowers, they are very attractive. Petals are brightly colored. They are having fragrance to attract the insect visitors. They are having broader stigmas or anthers to allow the insect to sit on it. Many of the insect pollinated flowers, they secrete the nectar for the attraction of the bees and birds and other insects. The pollen grains, they are spiny or have extensions. They help the pollen grains to stick on the body of these insects. Ornithophilous flowers. These flowers are pollinated by the birds. Very few flowers and birds show this form of pollination. Here we have this bird, the flower of Musa.